Everyone, I just wanted to introduce our organization over here. Our organization is called Aloha Molokai. It was a group put together to oppose the undersea cable and the wind turbines development that they're proposing on the west side of our island. And there's some information over there. If you guys want to learn more about us, you can look us up on the computer as well, on the internet, alohamolokai.com. We invited some of our representatives tonight. We put together this political forum, and it's not pertaining to the issue. It's pertaining to whatever's going on in our county, Maui County, and throughout the state. And I'm real happy we have some representatives here tonight. I'm sorry that Stacy Hamcrivello, my auntie, of course, she couldn't make it. She's stuck over in Lanai. So I think we want to get started. And please stick around, ask questions, because it's important. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our representatives and our candidates. I'd like to introduce Don Couch. Mahalo. Gladys Baisa. And Simon Russell. Okay, tonight what we're going to do is we're going to have each representative and candidate introduce themselves, and they have about 2 to 5 minutes to kind of introduce themselves and say what their platform is on, and then we'll open it up to questions. Okay? So let's start with Gladys Baisa. Mahalo. Mahalo for coming. Mahalo.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here tonight. It's always a pleasure to be on Molokai. I always feel my blood pressure go down to normal, below normal once I get off the plane. It's like, here we are. So again, thank you, and wish all of you that are going to be involved in the paddling all the best, and I hope you all win. I'm not a paddler, so I don't really understand what it's all about. I love watching it. It's beautiful. But I know Mr. Couch knows, so I'm sure he'll have a different take. But anyway, I did want to tell you just a little bit. I think most of you who are from Molokai, I'm not a stranger to you. I've been going back and forth to Molokai ever since I went to work for MEO in 1969, when most of you were not even a gleam in your parents' eyes, because I'm one of the kupunas now. I was a young 29-year-old when I went to work for MEO, and I left in 2005, and I was 65. So I spent most of my life at MEO. I started there as its fiscal director, and I took care of the books for many, many years. And then Joe Suki, who all of you know, was the director that hired me. And 14 years later, when Joe went to the legislature, I became the executive director. And right from the beginning, the thing that caught my eye that I was most excited about doing was building the transportation program. And I think most of you know that that still exists today. It's a totally different program that we started. We used to start with just seniors and taking them to the doctors and Social Security and the bank, and maybe creating a lunch program for them and recreation. But MEO, of course, grew into all kinds of things, and of course now we do transportation for everybody, and particularly for the youth and for people that have special needs. And I think that's never going to go away, because we are completing. I've been listening to the mayor's budget hearings as he goes around, and we had one up country last week, and it was really interesting to hear the clients come and talk about how the MEO drivers are specially trained and how they really care, and they really take care of the seniors, and they're very compassionate, and how much they value the program. We also hear the same thing from the kids, the youth groups that use the MEO services, and the elderly and the handicapped. Everybody is really happy. So I just wanted to tell you who I am. You know, I'm not your normal politician. In fact, I tell people I'm not a politician. I always feel bad when they introduce me as Council Member Baisa. I'm Gladys. I haven't changed. I'm the same person I was many years ago. I just have a different job. And this is the worst job that anybody can do. Let me tell you, it's a tough, tough job. Because every day you have to make tough decisions. And there's people on both sides of every issue. I don't care what it is. It could be the windmills. It could be water. It could be Hawaiian rights. It can be whatever it is. But there's always going to be people on two sides, and people who like what you say and people that don't like what you say or vote. And so you're always making some people happy and some people unhappy. And that's really hard for me. I came from MEO where everybody loved me. They loved me because you were always doing something nice for them and their family. And they'd say, oh, Auntie, thank you so much. Now when I see them, sometimes they're not too happy with me, but you know, it's the nature of the beast. I keep trying. I want to make a difference. My interest is in people. I care about people. I want us to have a good life here in Maui County and in the state of Hawaii. I want us to have decent homes. I want us to have decent jobs. I want good schools for our kids. I want a healthy environment, good recreation. I just want us to have a good quality of life. And that's tied up with so many things. And here on Molokai, it's very tough because your economy is not doing all that well. Plenty of people don't have jobs. I hope that we can find a way to pull this community together to find something that is agreeable to everybody so we can take care of people and get them jobs and the income and the homes and the things that you need. It's really, really important. I want you to know I'm not a stranger to Molokai. I've had the opportunity to work with your people for many, many years. I know many of the kupunas. I know many of the young people. I've had the opportunity to work with some of them from when they were in Head Start, and now they're the parents, because you know I've been around that long. And so your families are not strangers to me. I know you. I've been through ups and downs with Molokai. I remember when Pineapple went and MEO brought many of you to Lahaina to work on the ferry every day. You know, we've done so much. I remember when Mauna Loa town closed down. I mean, there's just been so much history here. And so I'm aware of that. I want to be able to work with you. And I want you to know that whoever your new Molokai representative is, that I will be happy to work with your new rep and welcome them to the team. I'm hoping to get reelected. I do have an opponent. I hope that I get the opportunity to go back. I ask for your support. I'm eligible for 4 more years on the Maui County Council now. I'd like to serve those 4 years. After that, I think I'm going to be happy to go to Kaunoa and sing and dance with the seniors. Yeah, and everybody believes that, right? I tell my husband I'm going to die behind my desk. You know, I really enjoy working in community. I love people. I love coming out. I enjoy trying to solve problems and make things better. And for those of you who don't know me very well, if you want to know more about me, there's people here that do know me. Auntie Cookie knows me very well. I've worked with her for many years. She can tell you about me. Irene Ka'ahanui is another dear friend of mine. Irene is not here tonight. She's with her dad. He was very sick and she had to go with him. Huh? Auntie Kawila. You know, a lot of the kupunas here know me. They know who I am. And so if you're not really sure, talk with them. I'm sure they're going to tell you that I'll do my best for you. I'm not a politician. I'm a person who cares and wants to help. And I like to work with my colleagues. I want to tell you that I enjoy working with Member Couch. I'm very happy that he's here tonight. He works very well with me. We've worked really, really hard on some tough issues, and we want to continue working for you next year, if possible. So I would really appreciate it if you would also support him. I am here to support him also. So that's it. I'll be quiet and I'll answer any questions that you have for me later on. I also want to introduce you to somebody you may not know, and that's my husband. Sherman, wave your hand. He's been my faithful supporter for 48 years. We'll be married 48 years in January. And I can't do a campaign without him. He's the wind beneath my wings who quietly is there to support me. I have 3 children, 5 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. So believe me, for those of you that are mothering and grandmothering and whatever, doing all these things, I know what your life is like. I'm in your shoes. So anyway, I'll be quiet. Thank you.
Aloha, everybody. My name is Don Couch, and mahalo for inviting me to join you in this forum. I'm not as well-rooted in Maui as Gladys is. I moved to Maui about 22 years ago, and about 18 years ago, I came to Molokai and with a friend of mine did a video that you guys may or may not remember called Broken Promises, talking about the 201E, I think, application Mauna Loa, and it was well received by a lot of the residents of Mauna Loa, and they every time I go over there, anybody who's left, they still remember and invite me in every time I come over. So I really appreciate the hospitality that Molokai has given me over the many years. A little bit about myself. Gladys alluded to paddling. When I came to Maui, I learned how to paddle. I went to a very good local canoe club. It's no longer there. But I went to a canoe club to learn about the culture on Maui in Hawaii. I sat down, I kept my mouth shut and listened and listened and listened and listened, and I learned a lot. Every time I tried to say something, they would always say, no, wait, listen more, it goes deeper. So the thing I learned about paddling, and I haven't been able to do the Molokai channel. I have done the Liliuokalani, but not the Molokai channel. Yeah, I can't do water changes anymore. A little bit too heavy. I gotta iron it. I'm not gonna iron the Molokai channel. Anyway, the thing I learned is just to listen and let everybody talk and then get the nuggets, because everybody has nuggets. Like Gladys said, there's more than 2 sides to every story. And you gotta hear them all. And then you gotta weigh what's best for everybody. And that's what I'd like to do on the council. And if you've seen some of the meetings, you know I ask questions, but I ask questions that, you know, poke at somebody's beliefs. That if they say this is the way it is, I say, well, what about this? And a lot of times it opens their eyes. I ask questions to open people's eyes. But mostly I listen, and I want to listen to you guys, hear what you have to say. I've been listening about all the issues that are going on here, and it's very challenging over here. But I want to support you. I want to keep you guys going as best as you can, because this is a great island. I you know, love coming here. Like Gladys says, the blood pressure goes down when you get off the plane. It's just nice and relaxed, so I want to keep it that way. Mahalo.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Gladys. Thank you, Don. My name is Simon Russell. I'm from Hamakualoa on Maui, in the Ahupua of Kuiaha, on a small kuleana lot. I am tending to a kuleana at Hilu Hilu, and I love my life. And my greatest supporter is my wife over there, Kiki. Thank you, Kiki, for all of your support. And the newest member of the Russell family is Kanani. And when Kiki became pregnant was when I decided to run for office, because there's so many issues confronting our island way of life, and I'm greatly concerned about them. The undersea cable being one of them, a major issue that I'm concerned about, and the possible devastation from these industrial windmills that we're up against. So those are things that as a state legislator for House District 13 I'd be looking at. And for those of you who don't know, House District 13 goes all the way from Kaupo to Stable Road in Sprecklesville, and that whole east and south section of Maui, and northeast and south, as well as Molokai, Lanai, Koholave, and Molokini. A huge host of issues and subjects to think about, and we need somebody who is going to love traveling and love reading and writing. Unfortunately, I love doing all these things. I love to travel. My family, actually, I wasn't born in Hawaii. My family sailed to Hawaii in 1983. We sailed to Kauai. We were merchant mariners in the lumber trade, and we sailed a boatload of lumber to Kauai and I grew up on a small farm there. And we built a farm, and I grew up farming and surfing and hunting and paddling. And I love paddling in the ocean, and I've taken up the sport of stand-up paddling. A good friend of mine is a Kolu Kalama, and I actually convinced him to run for office up country for the State House of Representatives. So I'm running for the State House, East Maui, Molokai, and Lanai. And I'm definitely eager and willing to answer any questions you folks have that on the state level, that any questions that you have about the state level politics, I'm here to answer and to the best of my ability. So, ai aloha Molokai. My name is Simon Russell, and I'm running for House District, State House of Representatives. Thank you very much.
I guess I'll ask the first question if that's okay. Yeah. First of all, you know, I thought there'd be a little bit more people tonight, but the last minute they planned a boxing match. Yeah, you know, so people like to watch others beat each other up, so that's fine. But, you know, so for some of us behind there, if you want to come and ask questions, I hope everybody will participate and engage and ask some questions. My first question, and this will be a question for all of you, would be, what do you think is the most challenging issue in your district today?
It's very interesting, but if you had asked me this before last week, it would have been very clear, and it still is, water. We have a serious issue with water upcountry. The nice thing is that finally we were presented this week with a solution to the upcountry water meter list problem by Dave Taylor. After 2 generations of that water meter list being a problem, Mr. Taylor came in a year and a half ago, and with the staff, he's done a great job of doing all the research, of putting it all together, and he presented in the Water Resources Committee on Wednesday morning, was it Tuesday? Tuesday morning, a solution to the upcountry water meter list problem. He has identified 2 million gallons of water that can be used to take care of the people on that water meter list. And now it's up to the county council. They're going to be coming down with some legislation that we have to take a look at, because in order for us to give out the water meters, we're going to have to do some cost. We're going to have to look at costs, and we're going to have to figure out what will a water meter cost, what will water cost, and what do we do in case of droughts, and how are we going to go about this. So we have some policy issues that he has to deal with, even though he has the answers as to where the water is going to come from. He estimates that if the council does what we need to do, that we could get rid of that water meter list in 2 to 3 years. And what a blessing that would be for all the people up country that have wanted to build homes for their families. I'm one of them. We're on that list. I think my husband and I are like number 769 or something like that. And so that we're way up on the list. But that'll mean that a lot of families who have land, and you know, the cheapest housing you can give your kids is if you give them the land. Because a lot of the cost on Maui to build a house is the cost of the lot. So if you can give them the lot and you have the water meter, then it's the cost of the house. And you could do that with Habitat for Humanity. You could build your own and be your own contractor, get your ohana together. Everybody knows how to, you know, put tile and install pipes and, you know, get a contractor, and you can do it fairly cheap. So I'm very excited. I think the water problem is going to be done. And that's in my district. That is relative to my district at this moment in time. So thank you for the question.
Thank you very much for the question. In the district, I represent South Maui, which runs all the way from Ukamehame down to past La Perouse and almost up to Ulupalakua. The biggest issue in our district, there's actually 3 really big ones right now, and that is the infrastructure as far as roads. Our roads are pretty well in sad shape and not big enough or not designed well enough, including bikeways and places for people to walk. We don't have a lot of sidewalks on South Kihei Road or bikeways. We have people trying to ride bikes in very narrow lanes right next to fast-moving traffic. So that is something that is rising up. But the biggest issue statewide really belongs to the state, but is a huge issue in Kihei, and I'm looking to any candidate who's running for the state office, is the high school in Kihei. We don't have a high school in Kihei. We ship about 800 kids a day into Kahului on the roads, either in buses or in private cars, to go to school at Maui High or Ballroom High School. And then they have to, depending on if they're doing sports or whatever not in the afternoon, they have to all get in cars at different times and then get back on the road and go all the way back into Kihei. It's about time we have a high school in Kihei. We've been trying to get one almost since I moved to Kihei. So that's another big issue. And the last issue is parks. We have some very good parks on the beach, but they're well loved because not only do Kihei residents come to those beach parks, but so do the tourists, and more importantly, so do the people from Central Maui and upcountry, and sometimes Molokai and Lanai when they come over on the boats. They like to go to the South Maui beach parks, and so they're very well-loved parks, and it's very hard to maintain those parks. And as well as the people who live in South Maui, they don't have a lot of places to play ball. So we built a new park, very small. Right now, it only added 2 softball fields and a soccer field, and it's overused already. And we're still trying to expand that. So we're looking for parks, roads, and most of all, a high school. Thank you.
So from a state level, my thoughts are our biggest issue is overdevelopment and how much development is okay on a small island. Now, let's take a quick look at Oahu. They have a huge city there, and they no longer have the capacity to grow the food that they would need to feed their population of 1-point-something million. And that's because they use too much water. And so, in my opinion, in this district, water is the critical issue. And secondarily to that is development. How much development is okay to do? You know, we all want jobs. We all want good jobs. And a lot of those jobs have to do with development because our economy is about 15% government, about 30% tourism, and another 30% military. And then the rest is construction and small business. So a lot of us who don't work in the tourism industry or in the military or in the government, we're looking for those construction jobs, myself included. I'm a builder. I build houses for a living. So how many houses are okay to build and how much water are we going to need for those houses and those people? Well, to me, the answer to that question should always be only as much as the island can sustain. And the Constitution, the state Constitution tells us to be self-sufficient. So we should never have to import all of our food from the mainland. And I've talked to some folks and they say, well, it's okay to eat at McDonald's for the rest of my life, but I don't feel that way. I think we should, on Molokai, Maui, Lanai, every island should have the ability to grow its own food. And that takes a lot of water. So we have to look at how much water we have on every island. And I just spent some time on Lanai, and their sustainable use of water is 6 million gallons a day, and that's not so much, actually. So they're right at their maximum carrying capacity of the island of Lanai because it doesn't even hardly rain there. And they pump it out of the aquifer. Only water they get comes from dew, which goes down the trees and into the soil and percolates to the soil, and they suck it out with the pumping. And so that's a pretty extreme case, but on Maui we have a greater amount of water, especially in House District 13, which is the Waikamoe Reserve, and that's all the water. And so we're looking at who has the access to that water, and it's all private land, and we know who owns it. But the water itself, according to state law, is a common resource. And it says so in the Constitution. That's why there's a big lawsuit right now in West Maui, on the Navai Eha. It's been a landmark case a few weeks ago where the Supreme Court said Wailuku Water Company, formerly Wailuku Sugar Company, has to put the water back, or some unspecified amount. They're going to argue about it, and of course Wailuku Water would rather put very little. But the fact is, that was the largest taro growing area in the state about 100 years ago. All the water got diverted for sugar. Now there's no more sugar. So what are we going to do? We're just going to grow houses, or we're going to grow a sustainable population, and I'm all for sustainability and self-sufficiency more accurately. You know, sustainable is kind of vague. Self-sufficient is what we need, and so that's our biggest issue is self-sufficiency, and what is it?
So I'm going to open it up for the community. Thank you guys for your guys' answers. If there's a specific representative you guys would want to point the question to, that's fine. But then also everybody's going to have an opportunity as well if they want to answer that question as well. So I'll leave it up to Cheryl. Please come to the mic, Cheryl. Sorry.
Something that has consumed us for a year and a half, almost 2 years, and is the wind projects proposed for Molokai, which weren't our idea. Obviously, it was a state, but the county has to work hand in hand. So I would ask each, even though you guys are county, the county has a lot to say because of the Doug McLeod and others who are working in that whole scheme of things, and as well as the state. So I guess I'd like to hear what your positions are on proposed wind projects on Molokai.
I'll go ahead. I have the privilege of having been invited to sit on the PUC IRP committee. It's a large committee of over 60 people throughout the state that are part of the planning for HECO and MECO and HELCO as to what's going to happen in terms of electricity. And it was very interesting because the first meeting I went to, and we were asked the scope of what the planning would involve. I was very surprised to see as one of the things that they wanted us to work on and decide was whether or not there should be an undersea cable. And, I'm always into asking the hard question, right? I want to know. And I said, I'm kind of surprised to see this in the scope of work for this committee for the next year. Aren't we kind of backwards? This whole debate about whether or not we should have a cable, in my opinion, has gone very, very far. Like you said, for almost 2 years, we've been talking about whether or not we should have a cable. And now the Blue Ribbon Committee is going to figure out, is it a good idea or isn't it a bad idea? What is it going to cost? What effect is it going to have on the electric company and the consumers and everybody? And I found that very strange because it would seem to me that before we would get into all these advanced proposals, that we would have had that basic information. Why stir up the community with all these proposals and tear communities apart? It's not just yours, it's happened on Lanai also. And it's bad. I mean, it tears our communities apart when we do this because you get people on both sides. And I would have thought we would have had more authoritative information before we even did that. But I just wanted you to know that that's what's going on. That's one of the big questions in this committee that we're working on is it a cost-effective, good idea long-term, or isn't it? And what effect will it have on the utility, the ratepayers? We're very concerned. We want to make sure that if they're going to do anything to our communities, that the communities are satisfied that the community benefit is good. And we haven't seen that yet. Those questions are still out. So anyway, that's where I'm at, and that's what I can contribute. Obviously, we will play a small role because there's bigger people than us going to make this decision. But if I'm asked, that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll let the state guy go last since he's got the most to lose with this one. As far as the windmills were the question, I cannot see that if you put up a bunch of windmills, if the utility puts up a bunch of windmills in a place that nobody wants without giving any kind of benefit to the community, it's not, I cannot see. We're not going to be generating electricity here on Molokai so it goes straight to Oahu and nowhere else. And nobody gets anything. If they decide, if the community decides that, you know, if they give us free electricity, which I doubt they'll do, but let's say whatever the community benefit is that will allow you to say, yes, we'll do the windmills, then it has to still be what the community wants and the whole community wants. And like Gladys said, there's both sides of the story, so I always like to get people who are on opposite ends of a spectrum in a room together, and we just sit down and talk about it, you know? No official rules and any of that. Just sit down and say, all right, first of all, what do we all agree on? Because everybody usually agrees on a lot of the stuff. And then we find out, okay, we're all on common ground here. Now we find out the little things or the things that are important that we disagree on and say, okay, is there room for compromise? If there's no room for compromise, then we have to leave it up to the powers that be at the state to determine what it is. But I would rather people come together and try and compromise. If they say, we're going to put up 400 windmills, but we're going to give you all free electricity, I don't know, would you guys want something like that? Oh, okay, that's important to know.
That's clear.
That's very clear, very important to know.
No.
So then the people of Molokai have spoken, or at least the people in this room and this organization have spoken. Speak with everybody else and get together and see what you guys can come up with. It's pretty evident that the people who don't want windmills, it's no windmills at any price. Is that what I'm hearing out here? Huh?
No compromise.
No compromise. Okay. Now, you talked about the windmills, and Gladys talked a lot about the cable. If we can separate those two issues and say the cable doesn't go in if it's going to be taking power from Molokai, what about the other way around? What happens if we can get power to Molokai at a cheap rate? Not even. Okay, the only reason I'm saying we're okay, I'm okay with it on Maui because we don't, you know, we're not like the mainland that has, if something goes out in Los Angeles, California, San Diego can ship them power, or even Seattle can ship them power because they're on this big, huge grid. If power goes out on Maui, it's out. We can't get it from anywhere else. If it goes out on Molokai, you can't get it from anywhere else. It's my understanding that part of the intent, and maybe they're using that as a smoke screen, and if they are, we're not, you know, I'm not going to buy that. I'm glad she's on the committee because she'll find out for sure whether or not they're doing it. But if it is to connect all the islands so that if something happens, we can back each other up, that may be something to think about. But if it's tied into the windmills, I wouldn't buy it one bit. So I'd have to see what the cable's about before I make a final judgment. If it's just a smoke screen to get the windmills in, then I wouldn't be supportive of it either.
I've thought about this issue quite a bit in the past few months. I've been commenting on Civil Beat and following the writings of Kanoho here and Robin Kay and others. And I have to agree that there is no room for compromise. I had the privilege of working with, or actually touring the north end of Lanai yesterday with Mr. Oshiro, who drew up a prospectus. He did the archaeological survey of the whole north end, and it's just a beautiful area for hunting and fishing. And when they take bulldozers down that north slope, and it's not smooth, it's got gulches and everything, when they take bulldozers and those 30-foot wide roads down the mountain, they're going to create the kind of erosion that's going to destroy the reefs, and it's going to turn the whole side of the island into looking like Koholave. Now, nobody wants that. They don't want it on Lanai, and they don't want it over here.
Yeah, but they're saying it's clean energy. I don't see anything clean about that.
Well, it's not clean when the reefs are dead and there's no more hunting.
Okay, let's let them answer first, and then we can ask questions. After this, you can ask questions. Thank you.
The clean that they refer to is not burning oil. That's the only clean thing about it. But do we want to lose our environment so we don't have to burn oil? I don't think so. I'm sure the fishermen don't agree. And the one thing I've noticed is that it's short-term gain for the unions. They're going to have good jobs for about 2 years to do all the installation and the concrete forming and running copper lines and building roads and everything that entails. But in the long term, it's going to be a net loss for the community because the erosion is going to blow that whole side of the island to pieces. The reef is going to get covered in dirt. It's going to die. The fish won't be there anymore. So in the long term, it's a net loss. And as far as the undersea cable is concerned, I think that's it's a big ripoff. The PUC has allowed the electricity company to raise our rates to pay for the thing. So that's not fair. That's not even capitalism. That's crony capitalism, where we pay through the nose, and if they have any problems, like say an undersea landslide, lava flow, this is the Ring of Fire. It's the largest mountain range on the planet, if you count all the way to the base of the mountains undersea. So all kinds of stuff can happen to that cable, including landslides, tsunamis, earthquakes, possible lava flows between the Big Island and Oahu. They're saying they're going to run it from the geothermal energy production areas in Puna. My stepfather lives in Puna. He's never once had an energy decrease from being near the geothermal plant. All he smells is the stink of the sulfur emissions, and he's not real happy about that. So these are the issues that we got to look at. We have to get something in return, and it can't be higher energy rates all the time. And by the way, there's new wind technology, and the windmills don't have to be 400 feet high. They're called vertical axis windmills. They don't kill birds, and I think that the future of MECO and HECO and HELCO is to transmit power that we generate in our communities, and that will decentralize the grid and provide a more reliable source of electricity for everybody. So for those folks on Oahu who are all excited about putting windmills on the outer islands, they should instead think about putting solar on their roofs on Oahu, and that'll be a lot better and something that we can live with. So I'm glad you folks agree, and I actually have some experience with solar. I worked for NASA for 2 years as an intern from UH. I worked with the Research Corporation UH with NASA on the military base on Kauai, building solar aircraft. And so there's some amazing technology available now. And these windmills that they're putting in, I'm watching it out in Oahu on Maui, and the cranes they use to put the windmills in are taller than the cranes. So they're like 500 feet high to lift the motor up to the top and set it in place. And the wheelbase of those cranes is just massive. It's like 40 feet wide or something. And so when they go around a corner, they got to cut the road for that. And after they cut the road, the dust that blows, the erosion is very destructive. And you know, of course, if you have a windmill, you have lots of wind, you have lots of dirt blowing. And so the consequences of doing these projects are much worse than the benefits, in my opinion.
Okay, Kalamai, you know, we're going to ask some more questions. I would like to say, if we get another question pertaining to another issue, I know, a lot of us here are concerned about, the wind farm and the cable, but anybody with a different concern on another issue, and then let's keep our comments to maybe like 2 minutes or so. Adolf will take the time as we go. So, question. Dad, Adolf. Can you speak in the mic?
Okay, first of all, I commend you guys because running a political campaign is not easy. And we had experience with Kanoa Wailuku. He ran as an independent. And, running as an independent is, it's tough. But just the experience of running one campaign, I don't have my hat on, but my hat off to you guys. Congratulations for staying the course and helping us being public servants for our community. The question I have is about the PLDC, Public Land Use Development Corporation. And it does have both, obviously a statewide implications, but part of Act 55 addresses the idea of that the state will have the ability to bypass county zoning and ordinance. And so maybe we'll start with the far left and work down and have your perspective on the PLDC.
Thank you. I went to Maui Waiena Intermediate High School on Maui and testified at the PLDC hearing when they were there. And it was pretty illuminating. Not one person, including myself, spoke for the PLDC. Nobody said anything good about it. Everybody was up at arms and said it was a terrible idea and that we need to repeal Act 55, which I agree. And if and when I'm elected, I will be either sponsoring or co-sponsoring or voting for legislation to repeal Act 55, because the PLDC it's more cronyism. It's fast tracking a bunch of things that we probably don't want, because that's why the rules are there. The state isn't supposed to bypass its own rules. It makes rules for everybody to follow. And on that vein, you know, I would poho. Someone at the testimony said that whoever wrote that legislation needs to learn the difference between pono and poho, and I have to call that PLDC as poho. I'm almost at a loss for words. I was telling them about even just the name public land development sounds horrible. Like, public land is public land. It's not for sale, and the state selling itself, that smacks of cronyism. And my favorite thing that they did, they named one of their agencies in the PLDC the Public Land Optimization Plan. Now, that if you take that acronym, it sounds like plop, and that sounds like what they're doing to us. They're taking a big plop on us, and I can't handle that. So I spoke against it. You can see my testimony on a kaku, and I called it like I saw it. It's just horrible.
Plop, I like that. When you talk about PLDC, I have two letters, N-O. You know, they want to come in and take over, just for an example, they want to, out in Palehu Nui, which is the Punene Raceway, everybody knows about that on Maui, which is about 230 acres. They want to add 933 acres on there and build industrial, light industrial, heavy industrial, and commercial right there in the middle of Mokulele Highway and near the racetrack. Bypassing, I mean, they say, well, we don't want to bypass county rules, but if we have to, we will. And the other thing is they don't even have a plan for that. Then they came to us and said, well, you know, trust us. You're going to have to trust the state. The way the state has dealt with the counties before, over and over again, they haven't earned that trust yet. So until they can fix we'll bypass any kind of regulations that the county has, I wouldn't be supportive of that at all. You know, every time they come to us, we'll just say, we're saying no, but you guys can do what you got to do, but you're going to have a hard time to get through the county. So, no.
PLDC. Believe me, I've never seen people get so upset in my entire life. I've been to a lot of meetings. I did not attend the meetings, but I had the opportunity to watch most of them on Akaku, and also to read what went on and to talk to people. And it's amazing. You know, I told you we always have two sides. There was no other side on this. Everybody said no, junk, get rid of it. But it's been very interesting to watch the governor's reaction. The governor's reaction has been to defend it big time, and he wants to move it forward. And he made a statement about, if you want to change it and get elected, I'm the governor. And I thought that was pretty strong language, because people are not comfortable. People, unfortunately, have had a lot of dealings with the state that have not gone well. You know, on Maui, we were very upset because they spent a pile of money. I can never get the correct amount. It's between 13 and 19 million dollars that have been spent on planning a mega jail. And they didn't tell us anything about it until they had spent most of this money, and we had heard about it and demanded that they come and explain to us what they were talking about, because we can't figure out why we need a jail for 840 people when we have 370 at this point. Who else are they planning to lock up? At our expense, taxpayers, because remember, every time we lock somebody up, it costs a lot of money to keep them there, while we at MEO had figured out how to get them out and put them back in the community, contributing in a very cheap program that cost us $1 million for 3 years. So, you know, the PLDC worries people, it worries me. I think that it's better that we go back to our traditional ways of sitting down as a community, and people from the state want to do something, fine, they can come talk story with us, just like we do, and explain, this is what we want to do, what do you guys think? And we decide together. But this idea of having a few bureaucrats sit down and say, okay, this is what we're going to do, and you guys, like it or not, tough, this is going to happen, that is not a healthy way to build community. I don't believe in it. I come from grassroots planning. That's how I learned it. I learned it. You go in a community, you identify a need, you try to create a program, you work with the community. But you don't do it the other way, top down, because I have never seen that work. And I really would hope that we will be able to reverse this law in the legislature. I think it's really important that every single one of us call our state legislators once they're elected, and the ones we know are going to be there anyway, and tell them, please, you have got to get rid of this law. This is not a good law. It's unanimous. I don't know anybody who likes it except the people maybe who did it, and I think the governor wants to defend it. And what they told us, they came to talk to us, the state people, last week, Thursday afternoon, to talk about this Punene Airport master plan that they're building. They call it Pulehunui now. We grew up calling it Punene, they call it Pulehunui, but whatever, same place. And they could give us no details. All they could tell us was that they wanted to put industrial here, and they wanted to put this here and that there, but couldn't give us any details. We have no idea what they might be planning, but their excuse is that they need to raise revenues for these departments. And DLNR says, we really need money. You guys want DLNR officers, you want people to watch the beach, and you want people to watch the watersheds, and you want people to watch, get rid of on Maui, we're being overrun by deer and all kinds of things. And the DHHL says, we support it because we want the money to build homes for Hawaiians. And public safety wants it because they want to build a prison. And you know, they all have this plea of, we need money, and if we don't do this, we're not going to have money, so we can't help you. And that sounds very noble, but what is the price? It's the same thing as the windmills. What is the price for the benefit? And we should all be part of the planning and have all those answers before somebody goes ahead. But if this goes the way that it is, we're not going to know anything until they come and the bulldozers arrive. And I don't think that's what you guys want. I certainly don't want that. Thank you.
Can I add one more thing about the PLDC?
Okay, quick one.
Quick one about the PLDC. That's going to pave the way for the undersea cable, by the way, because the shoreline of every island is owned by the state of Hawaii, and if they can exempt themselves from rules, then that cable can come ashore really easily.
In fact, that's why I'm here tonight, because of the PLDC, Public Land Development Corporation. You know, I just got through seeing a program, Pierce Morgan on TV tonight. He had Jesse Ventura on. You know what he calls the Democrats and the Republicans? All crooks. Yeah. Their agenda is based on bribery today. And guess what? You can get a corporation, you can make anything DBA, doing business as, put a corporation up there. And what we got to know is, where's that money coming from? It's coming from the outside, going to certain people in the Democratic Party, certain people in the Republican Party, and that's where they got all the muscle. They can talk all they want. They can tell you, we're making laws. That's criminal for them to make a law and come back to us and say, we want your comments, and we're gonna paint this picture real broad. We're not gonna tell you what it's all about. We want your comment on what we're doing. Not about how we voted this law. No, that's not it. That's the criminal part. If we voted our law in, we'd be in jail today. For them to say, we had this law, we passed it, all of the Senate passed it, these are the people that passed it. They're not here to show you what their ideas are, but they said this little Garut, Japanese guy, to tell how great he's going to be the executive of this corporation. everybody votes no. Every island said no, negative, repeal. Guess what I just read? They said that's all irrelevant because they're only going to use comments. Okay, what I want to know is, how can we organize to put them down? This is criminal. The word is unconstitutional, you know. And we want to know what they're doing in the back room and where they're getting their money to support this problem. I don't know how the governor got elected, because I'm sure we would all vote him out if we had the chance to vote right now. He wouldn't be in office. But, and the word is not pono. The word is poho. They don't want to hear the word pono. It's not in their vocabulary. Their vocabulary is, how can we fool you people? Okay. Could you comment?
Thank you. And that's why I'm glad that the county races are nonpartisan. I don't go to either party's meetings or anything like that. I'm nonpartisan all the way. I like it that way. What you got to do is talk to your state legislator. If Mr. Simon is, well, Mr. Russell, sorry. Mr. Russell. Yeah, if Simon's fortunate enough to win, you're going to have to talk to him and say, let's get this done. You can come to the county. We might be able to do a resolution, but that's all we can do is ask our state legislators to consider repealing. So we can look at doing, oh, she made it. Oh, good. So we can look at doing that as well. If we can get a letter writing campaign to us asking us to do that, I'd be happy to start working on something like that. Okay? Gladys?
I really like what Member Couch has to say, but I have another thing I wanted to mention, and you mentioned it, and that was the issue about public financing of campaigns. You know, as long as we have this system where it appears that people raise millions and millions and millions, I mean, I'm just blown away by the amount of money that people raise for campaigns. You just wonder how they get it and where it all comes from. But you know, if we had a better way to level the playing field and we had some public financing so that everybody was equal, it would really make a difference. You know, we run for office and we have to raise our own money. And if you have a lot of friends and you have connections, you can get more money. If you're a poor person, doesn't know anybody, first-time candidate, you're gonna have a heck of a time trying to raise money. And so here comes some guy and says, well, I'll give you $2,000 or I'll give you $1,000. Or if you're running for a big office, it could be $6,000. Or I don't know how they get millions in the presidential campaigns and congressional campaigns, but they do. And so these people come and they give all this money. And they influence the elections. We saw it in the primary. We saw the millions and millions of dollars that influence people to vote one way or another. Every time you turn on the radio and the TV, you almost want to throw up. You get so tired. I'm at the point where I don't want to see political commercials already. Every time you turn on the TV, in a space of 15 minutes, you'll see 3 or 4 campaign commercials and the same thing over and over and over, and then they go back and forth, bad-mouthing each other. I mean, it's just really a mess. It's the way we campaign. We need to change our laws. I really think we need to look at it to level the playing field so that you can run for office without having to owe anybody. Because you know, when you owe, it's a tough thing. Unless you're, you know, are independently wealthy and you can put down all your own millions, then you don't have to worry. But most of us are working people that come from poor people, and we don't have that kind of money. So that's the issue. I think it's just the way we do it.
From my point of view, we need to get more people voting. There's only about, I think in the primary, about 35% of people voted. Now, every single legislator on Maui, with the exception of Mele Carroll, voted for the Act 55, the PLDC, and Mele Carroll wasn't there to vote. I wonder, you know, she probably would have voted against it. I don't know. I can't speak for her. But we need to get our friends and family to vote. And I think we should make those folks who voted for the Act 55 to pay the price, vote against them. And we need to get more people to run for office. And yeah, it's expensive. I live paycheck to paycheck. my family and I are making big sacrifices. That's why I thank my wife right off the bat for letting me run for office, because we're making sacrifices to run for office, but it's because we love Hawaii and we want to see a better place here. And I do not take money from corporations. That's one of my rules. I take money from citizens, and I think that should be the rule. No corporate donations, period, into political campaigns. Then we'll see a huge drop of corporate influence within our politics. Montana has that law. The Supreme Court actually struck it down recently, but that Supreme Court Citizens United decision really messed up our political process from my point of view. And that's what Jesse Ventura is talking about, and he's an independent. And so I agree, we have to get the big money out of politics somehow, but we also need to get more people voting and more people involved in the process, and that'll help a lot.
Okay, so I'd like to leeway into a special person who just walked in. She was stuck on Lanai, the plane trip. I guess the plane was delayed. But I'd like to introduce Stacey Helm Crivello. And the way the forum going, Mrs. Crivello, Helm Crivello, Auntie, is we're just introducing ourselves. You get about 2 to 5 minutes to introduce yourself and just talk about a little bit about yourself. Yeah.
Aloha. My name is Stacey Helm Crivello, your candidate for the Maui County Council, Molokai District. I would hope that Molokai will have a good turnout to vote in the general on November 6th. And a little background, I'm born and raised on this island, and Molokai is our home. And I would like to extend the kind of service that many of us wear, the many hats. Living here on our little island, we all know we need to contribute in every little way to make things happen. I'd like to take my community involvement and take it a little further, if I may, and fully represent our island at the county council level. Statewide, countywide, and especially for Molokai, we may have many issues, but we also have many values that we appreciate. We also have many assets that many may not recognize, and I think if we build on the assets that we so have here on our island, we can step up to the plate too. So it is my hope that county government can be in continued collaboration. I would like to have the opportunity to continue the kind of work that our existing council people are doing and with our administration, and work collaboratively to make things better for our island, to make things better for our county as a whole. And it is my hope that you will remember Stacey Helm Crivello on November 6th. Mahalo.
Before we pose a few more questions, and as we start the questions, let's have Auntie Stacey answer first, and then we'll go on. But before that, I'd like to call up also our OHA representative, Auntie Colette, and would Auntie? Yes. Would Auntie like to say a few words? Auntie? Sorry. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, our OHA representative, Colette Machado.
When I first ran for OHA, I didn't think I'm a good politician because I grew up as an organizer and more as an activist that fought on issues on development and kaho'olawe and many other issues that impacted our communities, especially rapid development. I'm 62 this next month. I make 62 years old. I can honestly say 40 years of my life has been a public servant, 16 of which I have served in the capacity of the trustee for the Office of Hawaiian Affairs for Molokai and Lanai. In the last 2 years, I've been able to, elected by the trustees to serve on a unanimous vote to serve as its chairperson. What does that mean as an individual born and raised here, had no desire to be a politician, but to fight for justice, to fight for transparency, and to make the crooked path straight in government. Those are principles that all candidates must have to begin with. If you do not have a constituent base that you are obligated to, for me it's the Native Hawaiians and rural communities such as this community, Lanai, and also Hana. You have to, as people who want to engage in public affairs or to become part of the governance direction and the politics, you need to be clear on what your principles are. I can honestly say to you, I have not done backdoor politics. I have not done anything to compromise my position as a Native Hawaiian where I would feel bad about. So number one, when you get into hard issues, you don't always have to compromise. The best approach is to, Frenchie Di Soto, who was chair and the mother of OHA, would say, you kuka, kuka, until you kukai. That means you talk until you had it out, and then you move forward. I believe in that simple principle because if you don't allow for equal process and validation of two sides, and it's just you and preaching to people and demanding these things, it does not work anymore. That type of leadership does not work anymore, not in Hawaii, not in state government, and not in the federal government now. So things are changing rapidly. The complex of the Congress is now more Tea Party, very strong conservatism. Issues at the Supreme Court over the last decade has been very conservative. So we're living now in a direction that truth and justice is like low priority. The exposing on spending, military use, etc. Meanwhile, we're all hurting. The economy is, I don't go preaching folks about that. So politics, we have to raise the level of politics that you attract people that can stand for principles. So that's what you look for in candidates. And if they're going to stick around and not try to climb the ladder, I've had opportunities to run for public office for Senate and also for House of Representatives. But I chose not because it's much easier to be single-focused to serve Native Hawaiians under the Office of Hawaiian Affairs Mission and the Hawaii State Constitution. Today I can tell you the outcomes. It might be an unpopular outcome for the land developers and also for the plantation people on Maui. The Nava'i decision making that came out from the Hawaii State Supreme Court validates in-stream flow standards must protect traditional cultural practices, and that is founded on Native rights. That's a chihu. The Hawaii State Supreme Court protects those waters, not just Nava'i on Maui, but statewide. So decision makers, the regulatory people with the Water Resource Commission, hey, they got a maka'ala, because the lawsuit that filtered up to the Hawaii State Supreme Court slammed them and said, you did wrong. You did not put enough effort into doing the assessment for in-stream flow standards and to protect traditional cultural practices. So I can tell you, that's after generations of working towards making sure regulatory oversight is protected. Another good thing happened. We're not part of the county of Honolulu. The rail issue, Paulette Kalekini and the Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation, who we fund, fought a good fight. The court ruled in Paulette Kalekini a lineal descendant. And again, because they wanted to whitewash the EIS process or the EA process, they filed a lawsuit. And the lawsuit was in favor of her. So now they have to go back and start doing a much more thorough approach in looking at how they design the rail and the sensitive cultural areas, specifically for iwi kupuna. Now I tell you, that's the kind of stuff that I never thought that we would be able to see in my lifetime. And that's what I'm talking about, the kind of positive stuff, the kind of leadership. I'm not saying I'm responsible for all that, but beneficiaries are fed up already. So we come in, we get the money, so we fund the great attorneys that can slam and support Navai Eha, the Dewey family, and all of the other farmers in the area. Same thing with Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation. We fund their operations. You know, so that's what it takes. It's a balanced approach, but it's not easy all the time to make sure that those fundings are in place. But it takes people that can stand up and beneficiaries. The windmill project here, I sat through you folks' meeting on Wednesday. I am so, you folks put some class into a community meeting. All of you had your statements that you prepared, tell the details were there. In spite of the possibility of some settlements through what we call benefits, you folks still hold the line. Now, that is transparency, and that is fighting for justice to correct governmental regulatory oversight with the state of Hawaii and the legislature. Because why? Aloha Molokai got screwed last year at the tail end of the legislative session, right? Across the board, not only you folks, but Lanai with regards to the big wind project and the undersea cable. So now you go back and you start working harder. You had a candidate that ran. Don't give up on that, because we need to put good people in office, people that can support your position and continue to advocate for that. So 4 more years, you're going to be stuck with Senator Kalani English. I shouldn't say stuck. You got to keep him balanced. Don't give up the fight to call him on stuff, as these people, beneficiaries, do to me if I'm not working on their behalf. I get calls, I get letters, and during the campaign, I hear from them. Stand for Kalani English to keep him balanced so he does the right thing that this community wants. That's how you work with them. He's already in. You got Representative Millie Carroll, same approach. But that's all we have at the state legislature. But you start building relationships already with people that serve on a particular committee that you want to work with. And that's how it rolls out. You folks are a group that has developed strong leadership, and you folks have been recognized. Don't ever falter in that. Once you folks start to waffle like that, your voice going to go from this to like this. Keep your credibility at the highest level that everybody would stand up and say, you count. And that's what I really want to express. I'm blessed this round because I've been unopposed. You know, I would think Walter Reedy would consider running against me, then we'd be in a big campaign, but he chose not to run against me. He's running for the at-large seat against Honani Apoliona at that level. So I walk into a campaign unopposed, and my name not even gonna appear on the ballot, and I'm be serving for 4 years. So I just wanted to tell you folks to keep up what you folks are doing. Challenge your elected officials. Don't give them a freebie. Even if they are in there, work with them to keep them balanced and document everything that they don't do that is appropriately should be addressed. And I can tell you that some of that can work for us. But work your networks in the legislature, your committees, whatever, talk story. Don't fall back on that. Same thing at the council. Don't let them come now and you're not going to see them they get only 2-year races. They have revolving doors that go every 2 years. I'm 4 years. Senate is 4 years. Millie Carroll House of Representatives is 2 years. You know, keep us honest. We serve you. Our policies reflect your interests. As I can say that with some credibility after 16 years. We serve you. And the minute we become disenfranchised with upholding this foundation in the community that supports who we are, I need to leave. And they need to be told that. There's the door, aloha. So I just wanted to tell you folks, keep up the good fight and work with those that are in office. Don't give them a free ride. What does that mean? Be one pest. Okay? Be one annoying pest. Uncle Sam, you're good at that video PF did. That's wonderful. That kind of stuff really works and visibly show up at the county council sessions, at the state level, whatever it takes. But I thought I would tell you is Holomua. And I wanted to really express that OHA and the county can do better, we can work in a larger capacity to do joint projects. On the island of Maui, through this guy Edward Dowling, he's a big developer, OHA has been able to receive these lands in Palawea with an endowment and a provision with land sales in this $5 million and up. We're going to get 0.5% of the revenue to help support the management of this cultural preserve at Palawea. And it's a project that we're working with the county, not the county, but with the Maui Community College with Clyde Sakamoto to see if it could get integrated with the archaeological program and with the Hawaiian language, that they would become the oversight and manage this property with the monies that we would receive from the sales of these houses. And it's a beautiful property. It's over 20 acres, and it has cultural sites that are heiaus, agricultural sites. It's right across the best beach in Makena called Palawea on the Mauka side. And that property now has been transferred to OHA to oversee, and we're working with the university to allow them to integrate with their curriculum. So some of those joint activities can work well with the county of Maui and also with OHA. We do have resources I can express to you in our portfolio at OHA. Up to this date, we have earned $36 million from our investments. Of that $36 million, 18 has gone to operations and to service of our grant making. We distribute $14 million of our grant annually to serve our Native Hawaiians. We operate on a $47 million operations for the whole office. We have a young administrator, Dr. Kamana'o Crab, who believes in research and analysis and analytical data. So we have a whole evaluation arm. This year we are working to bring in a new trustee from Maui, Kauai, and also for the Big Island, and also for the at-large seat. So we're going to have new faces on, hopefully we'll have new faces for Kauai. And I'm not sure what's going to happen on Maui because Trustee Hulu Lindsay is seeking the seat that was vacated by Trustee Mossman. So it's going to be a new faces, hopefully, but we still have a strategic plan in place that would allow us to continue to service. And then Cheryl, did you write that letter? I never got it yet. For the events monies. Yeah, well, I didn't get it at my office yet because I went through my mail already. So we want to continue to support that events activity that you folks are doing. I'm sorry, it's just something that I'm just praising you folks, but you folks should be praised. And we want to continue for your eyes to see through things from political leaders. We cannot let them get away with certain things that is offensive or not what is appropriate for your, what we call the elected, what do you call you folks who vote for everybody? The constituents. That's where it counts, is in the booth. But we have had such poor voter turnout. And that's where the apathy comes in. With poor voter turnout, anything can happen. The larger numbers you have, that means people are directed to select certain candidates that would be great. So we're lacking good candidates also, but at the same time, we need increasing in voter registration and people coming out to vote for these candidates. Okay, any questions? Yeah, they get good candidates. Are you guys good? Well, you know, I would recommend, not time for change at the county council. You want to bring in people with experience. We're blessed because we have a vacancy left by term limits by council chair and the Molokai councilman, Danny Mateo, which is being, you know, Tracy Helm-Crivello has applied to fill that slot along with Manu White-Peters. But I've always felt if you can elect people with experience, test them for 2 years, and then bring them back if they've done well. Make a scorecard. That's the only way you can know if they're doing the best for you and fighting for your interests. You know, so. Any questions? I know I'm talking long. That's the Portuguese in me. And my spaghetti getting cold. No questions. Sure.
Auntie, you're welcome to sit down and answer questions if you like to. Oh, you like spaghetti? You gonna eat your spaghetti? Okay, thank you so much, Auntie Colette, and thank you for all her support. Okay, so we take about 2 or 3 more questions, and then, yeah, Mr. Warnick. Okay.
John Worden. I've lived here on the island for 11 years now. In this very room last Wednesday, we had the PEIS meeting with the Department of Energy, Federal Department of Energy, as well as the State Department of Energy. And we were discussing what to do about the energy for the entire state. The proposal is that there will be a 70% change in the energy by the year 2030, and that there should be a 30% reduction in energy usage by means of conservation, and then alternate energy would make up the other 40%. So my proposal is, or my question is, how can we assure that the island of Oahu will reach that 30% reduction before one spade of dirt is moved here on Molokai? Can we assure that in some way?
That's fine.
Well, I think that Oahu should take care of itself. That's my feeling. They should not use more energy than they should. Gosh, let's see here. I'm tongue-tied, sorry. Oahu should not live beyond its means. That's the bottom line. And I think the outer islands need to form a coalition so that our will is extra apparent over there on Oahu. And that's the only way that we're going to let them know how we feel. And I kind of call it the Ahupua Coalition. Us who want to live within our means on the outer islands. Obviously, Oahu is not living within their means. They have this huge city, and it uses a lot of water and a lot of energy. And now they're asking us to erect windmills in our Aina for their needs. And that's just not our right. So I think with regards to the PLDC and the injustices that we all see there, the 2 words that might be useful are lawsuit. You know, we could sue them for violations of the Constitution because the Constitution mandates us to be self-sufficient, and they're not self-sufficient, not in any way, shape, or form. And so if we have to sue them, we should. And as we see in Navai Eha, lawsuits actually do work. And so they should be wary, and Governor Abercrombie should not refer to us as the usual suspects, us who don't want those things. And I resent that because it's nearly unanimous that the outer islands do not want to be bulldozed and have these humongous windmills installed. The benefits of a statewide energy grid would be apparent if the cost of energy went down, but again, as I mentioned earlier, it's not free market. We're all going to have to pay for that cable through higher utility rates, and that's not okay. We need to talk about that at length, and there's no indication to me that HECO or MECO or HELCO or any of those groups is going to treat us fairly. I don't think so. So I wasn't here at the PEIS meeting. I wish I was, so I could offer you more specifics, but that's how I feel.
Well, the county, again, is kind of stuck in a spot where it can't really do much, except for issue, I think they're allowed to issue building permits, and we can certainly look at ways of doing resolutions to echo that sentiment. And again, we need to see some backing for those kind of resolutions, so if we can get support from you guys via email and letters to ask for a resolution like that, we can certainly look into that. Yeah, absolutely.
Member Couch, of course, gave you the more or less legal political situation with the county's involvement in this issue. But you know, I'm thinking, and it was said earlier tonight, and I think it needs to be said again, that one of the things that we have to look very carefully at is, do we need to transmit and store and move energy around the way we do now? It appears that there's an opportunity here as the technology advances to have small generations in neighborhoods, and that can be shared in neighborhoods, and it doesn't have to be sent under the ocean, and it doesn't have to be sent long distances, but maybe we can come up with smaller little energy consortiums in neighborhoods and in towns, so that we don't have this big T&D that we have now with our electric companies sending electricity all over the island, and one part goes down and the whole thing is out for days sometimes, or many hours. So I think as the technology increases and we get better generators in our neighborhoods, that's the solution, that it's going to change. The way we handle energy transmission and distribution is going to change. It'll probably be smaller and locally. And we'll be looking at this. This is one of the thoughts that is being looked at by the PUC IRP group that I'm a part of. And it's already been talked about. So I know it's on the radar screen. Now, whether or not it'll actually come out as a recommendation, I can't tell you, because we're just starting. I've been to 3 meetings, and I think there's many meetings scheduled this year. So we're just at the beginning. But there are many options, and to solve the problem, that to me might be a viable way of dealing with it.
I think, first of all, when you look at what's happening with the wind farms, and that's coming about, and with the corporation, with HECO and government at the same time, I think some of the main ingredients that's missing is planning. I have not seen, or maybe you folks have, any kind of long-range planning as to how we really will be approaching renewable energy. There's no question that all of you, as well as us here and throughout the state, would want renewable energy. But I think it's our call as to what works for us. Oahu can make their call, what works for them. Lately, if you followed some of the editorial writings, many people now are complaining about the big wind farm in the North Shore, not expecting that it's going to block the plane view and the battery accident of fire. Can you imagine if something like that would happen out at our dry West End area? How would we control that? So one thing too, with the planning, HECO is not even ready for us to even do our home solar energy if we want. We don't have room on the grid. They don't have room on the grid for us. So that's lack of planning. So we will pick up the cost for the improvement of the infrastructure. Again, that's lack of planning. So I believe the renewable energy journey and path will move, but it's got to move according to what we want and how we want to take care and conserve. I think for Oahu, you know, they have advertisements and a lot of push on conserving your drinking water, and they can do the same thing with the use of electricity and whatever else. The other thing that blows me, I'm on Maui waving and what have you, it's also fumes, our use of our vehicles. You know, so there are many components that involves renewable energy, and there are many types of renewable energy that we should be paying attention to. And again, it all involves planning, and I go back to what Colette said, bring all the parties on the table. Kuka, kuka, kuka. So it's talk, 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 and have the dialogue so we can really come up with a solution, because it's not one size fits all.
Let's have 2 more questions, and then let's have give everyone an opportunity for a closing. 2.
Thank you. I just want to say this is the most intelligent and thoughtful forum I've heard all campaign season, so congratulations to you on that. I just had hopefully a quick follow-up for Russell. If you get into the legislature, well, the last conversation I had with Kalani English, I said, would you be willing to sponsor an amendment to the cable bill that specifically exempts Molokai and Lanai? Well, you know, it's the campaign season and yada yada, but we'll be going back to him with that. Have you thought about legislation, specific legislation in the energy area that you would want to push?
One thing in the energy area I'd really like to push is to decentralize that grid. MECO and HECO and HELCO have a monopoly here in Hawaii, and most people know that monopolies are not good for the economy. Anytime one company controls everything, they can raise the price, and the prices always go up. I don't recall any time when my electricity bill went down. And the price of oil goes up, it goes down. A few years ago, it was $150 a barrel, and my price of energy went way up, and then the price of oil sunk to $100 a barrel, and my price of energy didn't go down hardly at all. So what I would really like to look at in the legislature is breaking up that monopoly, and what I would like to see HECO and MECO and HELCO do is be the transmission agent of the electricity in Hawaii and just move it across the grid and have all the generation be local, from the houses, from people's backyard wind farms, from energy farms that people make. And I would like to continue the tax credits that are available now for folks to use to fund these projects, because it's really difficult because they're so expensive to justify it in the beginning, but over the long term there's profit involved. And so what we want in the future, in my opinion, is a decentralized energy grid that's dependable. Councilwoman Bisa mentioned that, and we were talking about that earlier. I think it's a great idea to decentralize energy, not only the energy grid, but a lot of different things in the state are centralized. The airline, my wife and I paid $400 to come over here from Maui, so that was a lot of money. And to go to Kauai, when I like to go and visit family on Kauai, that's another $300 a person. It's amazing how expensive these monopolies have become. When I was a kid, I paid $25 to visit my brother on Maui when I came from Kauai. And so the other big centralized problem, in my opinion, is the Department of Education. It's centralized on Oahu. They have a $2 billion budget. Per capita, we spend more money in Hawaii on our education than anybody else, but we're ranking 43rd. So we see where the monopolistic nature of our state government is taking us, and it's right into huge amounts of debt. The governor I went to a meeting recently, and he was telling the kupuna out in Lahaina how he was going to fund their retirements, and yet there's a $21 billion shortfall in the retirement funds. So we need to decentralize a whole bunch of stuff here, and I think that is gonna go a long way to fix a lot of these issues.
He asked him the question.
If you guys would like to answer, that's fine. If you want to pass, you can pass.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Sure. Okay. You know what? We'll get we'll get two more questions, and then we'll give an opportunity for everybody to wrap up. And then we'll kind of keep the answers. Do it quickly, please.
I'd like to sort of segue into a question relating to community organizations that, for instance, Aloha Molokai, you have many organizations, but recently there's been a sort of a resurgence of sort of the aha ki'ole cultural, I would say, community involvement in a lot of issues now on a community level. I guess for us on Molokai, it's a small community, and the aha ki'ole has recently, being actively involved in several issues. And a concern I would have, or the question I would have, is what is your perspective of the aha ki'ole playing a role into community decisions that can basically impact the community itself as a whole, whether it's a positive impact or a negative impact. So what's your perspective on the aha kiole?
Excuse me, can you define aha kiole for us? Maybe we'll answer smarter. We want to make sure we understand.
Okay. The aha moku, and I don't know the dates and the history on how it was created, but several years ago, and Colette, you may want to kind of help me in how this was created. But it was created at the legislative level, where it's a traditional type of organization from each island, representing different districts or aha puahas of each island.
Is that the same as the Aha Moku Council?
Yes, yes.
Okay, we hear about that at council a lot. Okay, now we're in the same ballpark.
Okay, and maybe Colette can share a little bit more. Okay.
The Aha Moku, well, there's the Aha Kiole. Several years back, there was concerns over inshore resource management. So there was a movement that was led through Kitty Simmons' federal program that she receives direct funding from the feds. She began to call together a statewide puvalu. And from that puvalu, they came out with certain directions and mission statements. Fortunately, in the process, Antivana Hanakahi was selected as the po'o. And the Molokai contingency that had gone through all the puvalos, how many? Maybe they had 2 or 3, I can't remember at Ala Moana, or they had 5, had risen up as the so-called leaders to take the lead to create an opportunity for practitioners, fishermen that use these areas, and also to identify within the Ahupua certain special areas that they wanted to preserve and protect. Well, that moved into a self-development organization. They have no regulatory framework currently, but they began to do what we call community process, or you could call it a charrette, where they did statewide input individually by each island. And that became a statement that they used to begin to call attention to state harbors, state regulators, along the inshore resources. Most recently, on Molokai was the issue with the boat coming in. Ask first before you come, that came out of the Aha Kiole. The Kiole name is specifically for Molokai. So this past year, as Adolph had indicated, I have to say, OHA was approached to fund it. They wanted to do 2 years, and the legislature had to do the other match, but they only came up for 1 year. And the way the statute worked out was that it would fall as an advisory under the head of DLNR, which is William Isla, and we provided the so-called matching fund of, I think, 57,000 or 60,000, and the state came in with 60. So in the measure itself that got passed, it was only that OHA helped fund, but they have not begun to organize this so-called advisory group to the chairman of DLNR, who is William Isla. They have the funding in place, but they have not begun because they have to prepare a report to the legislature as required by the law itself. So what does this mean? It means that people are concerned about preserving and protecting, and they're looking at possible administrative rules that would fit under the Department of Land and Natural Resources, and even create a division that would become the so-called guardians of these areas statewide. Whether or not the state of Hawaii could actually implement all of these goals and directions to create this, I would say right now it's going to be very difficult because they don't have the resources. If OHA didn't step up to fund the first well, we put up an offer. We were willing to go for 2 years, but the legislature said only 1. And I'm not sure what you could do in 1 year. And I'm not sure if the governor or even DLNR would recommend permanent funding. Because just $100,000 would only cover our staff, 2 staff, and airfares for people to come in and meet. So I'm not sure what direction they would go. All I can say is that they're not have regulatory framework. They have no specific responsibilities. They're not administratively mandated under the DLNR direction. So it's just in the developmental stage now. And they haven't convened any meeting yet. So time is clicking. He's supposed to submit a report to the legislature. A timetable is usually around November, December that you have to submit before the opening. And he hasn't identified who is going to serve. So basically, community groups or individuals on each island are looking to have regulatory review and authority to manage and to say no, no, yes, no, 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 yes. And that might become difficult because they may be speaking more out of the responsibilities of the different areas. What I'm really trying to say, you may not want to have state regulatory oversight in many ways because it becomes restrictive and you cannot limit certain provisions of certain aspects of the law because you have to include everybody. And that's what we're learning all the time. So I'm concerned too because if you go to Maui, you have Keaumoku on Lahaina's side and they've been really active and they're beginning to separate themselves because they don't see the value. The Harps on the Big Island who used to live on Maui are anti-Ahamoku. So the name is Ahamoku, not Ahakiole. The Kiole name is only specifically for Molokai. So we have to just maka'ala and observe on how these things fold out. What I'm concerned about is at the public meetings where the Ahakiole, because they're organized island-wide here by Ahupua'as, they're becoming to take strong positions in representing that this is the position of the Ahamoku, and that represents the island because they're going to do a voting process. All I can express, and on the record, PF, that it's not mandated by a statute. It's just not a regulatory position. And even with the funding that came from the legislature, it's only to advise the DLNR director. That's all I can express to you folks, that what is being represented is not actually in place. That's a self-proclamation of saying, you know, we represent this and we have authority over certain things. But it's not in the statute and it's not identified as a administrative rule because it doesn't have no teeth.
I have some questions on that. First of all, I thought it was a great idea when it came in and became a part of the Ahakiole. But right now, numerically, it represents 5% of our population. It does not represent the other 95% of the population. And the other problem that I had was that the mokus are selected, they are not elected. So I feel like, you know, where I'm in one ahapua'a, that the majority of the people in that ahapua'a have not been involved in the election. Do you know what I mean? I want to see that everybody is represented and not just selected. I feel like the moku have, you know, way more traditional information and knowledge than anybody else. But as far as leadership capability and being able to work together in a way that is like a governance system is, in my mind, questionable. And I would want to see better representation from the entire island, much more than the 5% that may have vested interest in one thing or another thing or another thing. That's it.
I think you articulated that in a manner that's where we're at right now. The Ahamoku is developing, and it's the Ki'olef of Molokai. They're a newly formed organization, although they have engaged with DNR on 2 specific issues with the cruise ship, and they're talking about other concerns. But that's all that is. They're a group like you. That's all I'm trying to tell you. They're a group like Aloha Molokai. You have certain principles and goals. You don't have any attachment to the government. You're not a regulatory, you're not administrative mandate, and so they are also. They don't have any of those things, because even now with the legislation that came out, they're advisory to the DLNR chairman. That's it. There's nothing else associated with the Ahamoku.
concern was at the PEIS that a representative from, that they offered to do a survey, and where Aialoha Molokai has the much broader membership partnership, would be a much more valid survey done by that group than by the Aha Keole, which represents the 5%. That's all.
What I really heard when Kamala was speaking was that she was asking that the Aha Keole be identified as the entity in the scoping documents, which is an assertion that they can make, and so could Aialoha Molokai. So if they choose to do a survey, they could do their own survey. That's what it would amount to. Whether or not it could be recognized as a legitimate survey, it just depends on how they did it. So I would say that you should not be threatened by that, you know, but it does appear that there is going to be some contentiousness, and that's where I think the decision making on how to proceed with them is to continue dialogue. Well, no, I think it's dialogue, because I can tell them, which nobody has told them, you do not have any teeth, you are not a regulatory entity, blah, 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 blah. We can do that because the law itself says the Ahamoku is advisory to the DLNR chair. And if they choose to take it with a little bit beyond their scope of advisory, that's where we have issues with. And that's what they should be told. Has anybody told them that? Has anybody told them that? Because you guys met already with them, with 50 plus people with Don Chan.
Anybody up here want to answer this question?
No, she's answering.
Okay, okay. Okay.
She's answering quite well.
So, you know what? Let's have some closing remarks from everybody. We really appreciate you guys coming out tonight. Mahalo. Hold on.
Manipulating the conversation, but maybe we can talk after, or I can come to one of your meetings. But we need to clean that up so people and I'll speak to William Isla about the position because they have not organized. But you know, the county council people, they play an equal part, much more than the state legislature, because they serve like me 24/7, 12 months out of the year, and they meet with regularity. They have regularly scheduled meetings, the committees function, the decision making that they do reflect all of us, and that's what we need to pay attention. At the legislature, they only run like a 60-day calendar, and after that, they're gone. So the county council election is very critical on who returns. I would say experience is important to come back. Also those that we have open positions for, and if you feel that they can represent a particular area, because we get to vote for all of them. The district didn't change in the county council. We have one vote for all the council people that are up for election. But I believe that we have had good county council representatives representing our Maui Nui Islands, and they really deserve a big hand for continuing to do that. Gladys Bison speaks for herself because she's the mother of MEO, like Frenchie DeSoto was the mother of, you know, OHA. She believes in community service for the people, and you got to look at certain characteristics in the individual that you feel can complement our county. They serve only our county, and that's important to know. And they have to work well with the mayor. We cannot be separated because that's when you start clashing and nothing gets done at that level. So you need people who understand parliamentary procedure, that can work well and be honest and direct. So experience makes a big difference. So I'd like to talk to you folks some more about the Ahamoku.
I don't think any of us had the opportunity to comment on the Aha Keole. So if we look back, and IAM, when you first got hold of the big wind farm on Molokai, you inoculated the Aha Keole. You inoculated it through the survey process. And I believe you had over 900 response and said no to it. So, and that's a process. That's a community process. I believe in community process. On this island, it's more put in use than anything else. Whether we agree with the project or the issue or what, or disagree, it's a process that we've put up with. I also feel that, like Colette mentioned, the Ahakioli is a representation of a community process. It's not the only process that we have, but it is up for the residents of Molokai to make sure that is being told. So if they will articulate that they would like to be full representation, you also have that opportunity to articulate that kind of request, as well as other organizations. We've seen that through different issues that we've dealt with. And it can be hardcore, or it can be where we all sit down and have the dialogue. I think the concept of protecting our natural resources are of value. And we all have a part in that, you know. And if we're not, the head of the LNR needs to be held accountable too, because he's appointed by our governor. And so it streams on whatever, to me, you hold the policymakers and their appointees accountable. And I think we as constituents have that right, and we can also be the voice. Someday, maybe our voices will all echo in one. You know, that's the hope. Right now, we have all different parts, you know, so hopefully we can harmonize, but we know how it can move here on the island. But I think if we keep in mind that the community process is of value, especially for the rural areas like that, and continue to bring people on the table to be involved, because how do you define who's my ahupua'a representative, who's the konahiki, or who represents my voice? I think that's what we have to ask ourselves. So I think, Kanoho Wailuku, if you're asking us to wrap it up, first of all, I'd like to really, really say thank you to Gladys Baisa, Don Couch, and Simon Russell for joining us here on Molokai. They didn't have to. They took the time out to join us. I was on Lanai today, and I've spent many days throughout the week on Maui. And it's always good to come home. But you know what? We all face the same challenges. And I believe that with the voices are constantly expressed, and with your policymakers giving you the ears and eyes to hear you, we can come up with solutions instead of not trying to find solutions and just a complete cutoff. So, for instance, your movement is with not wanting the undersea cable and the big wind farm. We know there are many solutions to renewable energy. We know what's out there, but then you have made your voices heard. And the PIS people, I think, have mentioned that as they were heading from island to island. So that's the first thing about participation. And policymakers do hear you, I believe. I'm not a policymaker, but I've been involved with community on this island, and some of us have the scars to show it. Some of us have the big smiles to show it too. But it's a matter of keeping the movements of dialogue. I think that's the most important thing that we can do. And hopefully I can be on the table with people like Gladys Baisa and Don Couch, and continue the kind of work that has been happening these past years for our county council. Mahalo nui, and have a blessed evening.
All right, aloha everybody, and thank you very much for staying around and listening to what we have to say. I just want to remind everybody that even though I have to live in South Maui, I represent everybody in the whole entire county. Every one of you can vote for every one of us. So don't forget, just because you have a Molokai seat, that doesn't mean you can't vote for Gladys or you can't vote for me somewhere. We're asking you to vote for us to keep the team together. We think we have a really good team. We're not a group of 5 and a group of 4. We have a lot of votes that go 5 to 4, but seldom are they the same 5, which is a really good thing, because that means we're all thinking on our own, and we think we know the way we're going to vote on a particular issue. But it's never the same 5 together. There's no gang of 5. So I think that's a really good council, and I would appreciate your vote November 6th. And remember, you can vote for all of us. Mahalo.
We decided we're going to go girl, boy, just to keep it exciting. Anyway, I want to again thank you very much for inviting us to be here tonight. It's always a pleasure to be on Molokai, and I'm really glad that I made the decision to come. It was a decision of this morning in my district, St. John's in Kula had their annual bazaar, and that's my district, so I needed to show there. And it was wonderful to be with the folks that, I represent. That's my district, even though I represent all of Maui County, and I want you to know that I represent you, and I care. I care about Molokai, I care about Lanai, I care about everybody who lives in Maui County, and you can vote for all of us regardless of where you live. And as long as it's that way, I think it's very important that we come out and spend time with you. So anyway, after I did St. John's this morning, then I attended a 15th anniversary of the old Wailuku Inn. If you guys ever go to Maui and need a real special place to stay, it's right next to the county building. It's run by Tom and Janice Fairbanks, and they were celebrating their 15th anniversary today, and it was a real treat. They held a 1934 style Hawaiian poi supper, and it was just amazing. They had the whole thing dedicated old Hawaiian style, and they had old Hawaiian style food. Even the plates and the things that they used were all old Hawaiian. And like the salt and pepper shakers were little poi pounders, and the food was very authentic. We had squid luau, and we had chicken long rice, and real kalua pig, not the kind that they steam. This was the real deal. And it was really, we had a wonderful time. And then from there, of course, we had to decide. So we couldn't go to Lanai, but we came to Molokai. And we're very excited, my husband and I, we love to come. I think everybody knows that, at one point in my life, when I went to MEO in the beginning, I wanted to move here. It was my first time to Molokai, and I had to go out and inventory all the areas and look at all the furniture and make this list for MEO. I was in charge of that kind of stuff. And I got to see the whole island and meet everybody, and I felt like I was in old Paia town. I feel like I'd gone back to Paia Plantation. And it just takes you right back to your roots. And so I really wanted to move here. Of course, it never worked out. Fred Bicoy wouldn't give me his job. He was the director here on Molokai, and of course he stayed until he finally retired. But any chance I have, I love to come back. So I want to thank you again for your hospitality. It was a wonderful evening. My compliments to the cooks. The food was outstanding. We really all enjoyed it. Let's give them a hand. And I'm not surprised about the intelligent conversation this evening. I've been here for many, many, many community meetings, and every time I come, I'm so impressed with the number of people who show up and how well versed you are in what's going on in your community and how well you articulate how you feel. I wait every issue of the Molokai Dispatch comes to my desk, and I read it because that way I can kind of keep in touch with you. But please, I want you to know that I would humbly ask for you to return me to the county council. I'll continue to do my best for you and possibly could serve 4 more years. I'm going for my 4th 2-year term. And I hope God gives me the health, and I'll continue to do my best for you if you will support me. And please know that I'm available. If you need me, call my office. I promise you I'll return your call. I return almost every single call that comes to my office, whether I have to do it late at night or on a Saturday or Sunday. The ones I don't return, believe me, I have a good reason. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gladys. I would just like to offer a quick little bit of my mana'o on the ahamoku subject. My campaign is called Restore Hawaii Now, and I'm not joking about that. I think we don't have to wait. We can do it now. And one of the greatest resources on the planet is humans. There's a lot of us now, and we can form these community groups that can make a difference and voice our opinions to the government and influence policy, and we should. And if we lead by example, I think we'll attract others to follow and maybe to form their own community groups that will also influence policy, because the government, the power the government has is the power that we give them. And once I saw a bumper sticker that says, the fate of the apathetic society is to be ruled by evil people, and that's the truth. We really have to influence our friends and neighbors to be more active in the community. So my campaign is Restore Hawaii Now, and I refer back to the old days when Hawaii was 100% self-sufficient. We grew all of our own food. We took care of ourselves, and now we are the most dependent society on the planet, pretty much. I can't really find any others that are more dependent than us. We import 95% of our food. We import over 90% of our energy. 90% of the states of America have a better education system. So there's a heck of a lot of room for improvement, folks. And so that's what my campaign is about, to work towards these improvements and work with the people, because I'm one of us. I'm a working citizen, and I want to do my best for Hawaii because I love it here. And so I want to extend my aloha to you folks who invited us here. Thank you so much, and it's been my privilege, and I'm humbled by the fact that I get to come here and speak in this forum with these wonderful people. So again, mahalo, and please don't forget to vote on November 6th.
On behalf of Aloha Molokai, we'd like to thank all of you, Stacey Helm-Crivello, Gladys Baisa, Don Couch, Simon Russell. Mahalo nui, mahalo. Please go and eat again. Go eat again.